Welcome, everybody. This is episode number 8 of the Greatest Muley Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Matt Anderson. Joining me today is my sister, Michelle Majors. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Welcome back. Always
Thanks.
nice to have you on here. And we've got a lot of great memories hunting with Dad and hunting
Absolutely.
together and with our crazy brother Mike. And so we're gonna touch base on a lot of those fun hunts today, and we got some really good pictures to share with everybody and some fun stories and talk about all sorts of crazy stuff that happened over the years. So why don't you go ahead and get us started?
All right. So Dad lived for hunting season. He loved hunting. He loved being with his friends. He loved being with his kids. And you and I were just talking about how whether it was your first deer or your 15th deer, and whether it was a little tiny buck or a big buck, whatever, he was so excited every time. And none of that even mattered. It was just, we hunted together, we were successful. And he took such great joy in that. I remember this one hunt, Matt and I had talked about some black management hunts that we had done kind of years back. And Dad and Mike and I went out this one morning on this block management piece, and there was a long ridge that kind of ran down, and the road went down kind of alongside of it and then around at the end. And so Dad set us off, Mike and I, said, you guys, hike down this ridge and I'll drive around to the bottom and pick you up, see if there's anything up there. So Mike and I had just started up the ridge, and we jumped this big buck and a bunch of does. Couldn't get a shot at him there. And Mike's like, you go down and go around the bottom and I'll get behind him and chase him down. So I was going and watching, kind of watching. I'm watching the ridge as I'm coming around, and all of a sudden this deer came flying off this little ridge, coming off the big ridge, just right at me, and all I could see were horns. So I shot, nailed it, comes rolling down the hill, and I'm screaming and hollering, I got him, yeah, I got him. And Mike's hooting and hollering, yeah, you got him. And then I get over to him, and it's this little bitty basket buck. So Mike takes off down the ridge. He finally jumped the big one and killed it right before it came off down the edge where Dad was waiting for us. Are you there?
Yep,
I'm
sorry.
Here. I won't touch my computer anymore. So the Dad could hear us screaming and hollering, and he was just laughing his head off when he came, and then there was no I had the little bitty buck and Mike had the great big one, but good story. And Dad kept talking about that and how cool it was to hear, to hear us scream.
Got a little technical difficulty here. Hang tight, everybody. There we go.
There we go. Hey.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was one of many.
Yep.
The other thing I thought we could talk about tonight is some buck fever stories. If you've never seen a really big buck, enough that, and I had killed probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 bucks by the first time I got buck fever. But Dad and I were hunting this one time, and I was probably still in high school. I don't remember, but it was snowing like crazy. I mean, like, you couldn't see probably more than 30 or maybe 50 yards in front of us. we're on, and Dad was walking, and I was just kind of trudging along because I was tired, cold, and
Yeah.
all of those things that you get. And he's like, right there, Michelle, right there. There's a big buck. He's just laying there. And I'm like, where? I can't see him. And I was looking way over top of him.
Yep.
And he's like, right there. No, it's like right there. And I finally saw this he was big buck, dark horns, just beautiful. And I slung my rifle up to my hip and started shooting from the hip. I never did pick my rifle up and aim. Of course, I didn't hit him, and he lived to tell it. But shooting from the hip, man, that was crazy. And Dad was just shaking his head and laughing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, little buck fever there.
And keep in mind, she's using a bolt action rifle, not a lever action, which is what you would normally shoot from the hip with.
Yes.
Not that I recommend that as a course of action, but
yeah, no. Yeah. Then there was another time, and I don't remember the details. I just remember trudging along again, and we jumped a big buck, and Dad's like, get a rest. So I get down, and I got a rest, and I eject like 5 shells out of my rifle and never fired a shot.
Yep.
Dad's like, what are you doing? And I look over, and there's all these cartridges on the ground. I never pulled the trigger once.
Oh, that's so funny.
So that can happen when you see a big buck like that one behind Matt.
Yeah.
You lose your mind.
You get a little crazy sometimes.
And buck fever comes over you. And I'd always laughed because everybody had talked about it. But
yeah.
Then it happens, and then you're like, oh, right, maybe so.
Yep. It is real.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the other type of buck fever when there's a big buck and he's really too far away for anybody to hit him, but there's like 14 people all shooting at him, hoping that a Hail Mary will,
oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, I bet if you counted up how many times just Mike has missed on bucks like that, it would be probably an order of magnitude more than most people have ever shot their rifles ever. And that's just at long range misses. So.
Yes. And between his rifle and his bow.
Yeah. Seriously. So funny. Yep.
That's why we tend to carry a lot of ammo, because you never know.
Mike gets super crazy. Like he gets like the fever bad mind. And I don't like I'm kind of an outlier in a lot of ways. So hi, sweetie.
Hi, Anna. Hi, Anna. How are you? Good. Are you getting ready for bed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's new neighbors next door.
You have new neighbors next door. Do they have kids?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
We just have to meet and see.
Yep. That's awesome. Pretty exciting. Do you have school tomorrow?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Love you.
Love you, honey.
Love you.
And there's our future huntress.
Yes. We've been play hunting all day today. So.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Get a big one?
Well, we had elk for dinner, so that was nice.
Gotcha. Cool.
Some pork tenderloin, but it was elk. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We were just talking about needing to fill our freezer with some venison. It's been a while.
For sure. We Anna helped me clean a couple of my guns and go through. She wanted to see my gear, and so we kind of talk
Gotcha.
through my pack and
Hmm.
the various things. I'm mostly packed for our trip, but just
What?
gotta. hmm
You're never packed and ready and excited, are you?
Ah! I'm so excited.
I used to get that way, but now my life is busy enough that it's like usually it's here before I know it, and I'm not quite ready.
Yeah,
I'm psychologically ready, but not physically
sure.
ready. So
Yeah,
anyway, but yeah, I get me excited.
yeah.
Talking to Uncle Norm every day, and
Yep.
yep,
Yeah,
counting
it's
down the days.
I talked to Mike this morning, and he had talked to Aaron and Corey, and they've been bow hunting elk, and
Mm,
Aaron saw the biggest muley buck he's seen in 20 years,
that's exciting.
and Corey's been seeing lots of good both muley and whitetail bucks, so
Nice.
it's looking promising.
Yep.
It's always a crapshoot when you get out there and whatever,
Right.
but
Right.
we saw a lot of smallish to decent bucks last year, so
That will all be one
hopefully a
size
lot of
bigger.
them had a chance to grow another year and
Hmm.
step up into that next category. So,
Yep.
but we will see. But we're
Yeah.
less than 3 weeks away. 3 weeks away, we'll be done with our first day of hunting. So,
Ah!
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Oh, and then
Yeah.
it always goes way too fast.
Way too fast.
Yeah.
But it's part of the deal. That's what
Mm-hmm.
happens when you anticipate something so heavy for a full year.
Right. And then
Like the thing that we look forward to the most throughout the
right.
year is this 1 week of hunting, and
Yeah. It's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. You prepare for 3 days and then it's gone in 15 minutes. And you're
yep,
just like, what happened?
yep,
But
that's
yeah.
a very good analogy. But
Yep.
yeah, no,
It's all worth it.
I never. I mean, I've gotten some buck fever, but what generally happens is it's after the fact.
Mm,
Like, um, a lot of times when the action's going down, I'm like,
dialed in
and
and
you saw like on that buck that you and Mike, that I shot with you and Mike, where my gun was way off.
mm,
Um, buck was only like 220 yards maybe,
mm-hmm.
standing there broadside, and I shot and I hit about 6 feet below and 4 feet to the right. And
Mm-hmm.
so Mike
Yeah.
called out that distance, like that's where you hit, and then the buck took off running, and I was able to make a correction, and with the second shot I put him down. And
Mm-hmm.
we've done that several times where,
Right.
like, Mike called out where I hit, and
Exactly.
then I was able to make a correction, and it's
Yeah.
it's
And
pretty.
that's what Dad always did for me too. And
Yeah,
that's one of the many things I miss, but because
yeah,
he was always, he could, and I don't know how he can see it. I can't see it half the time.
it's hard.
And he'd be like, yeah, you're, blah, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
all right.
So you
So
just adjust and
yeah, you adjust and then,
listen and
right,
adjust, and then
right. Yeah.
are able to make it count. So
Yep.
yeah, there are so many times where, well, like now that I'm kind of leading a lot of these hunts, like that falls on me now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely something you have to cultivate, like just judging distance for one, and
Right.
then like watching where the shots are and seeing, in case you do need to help with a follow up, like,
Mm-hmm.
seeing where they're hitting. And um yeah, it's
Yeah, and I don't know that I've ever hit one that was standing still broadside. Well, actually, the last buck I killed, I did. Yeah, I took him down in one shot, but he's the only one I've ever killed that was standing. I would shoot and then they'd take off running, and then I could hit them on a run, but could
yeah,
never just hit them
yeah.
right there.
I'll pull that buck up here real quick. You want to talk about that hunt?
Which hunt?
The last one with Dad, with that
Oh,
when we all shot big bucks.
yeah. Yeah, so what was it? 3. It must have been, is it 4 years ago now? 3 or 4?
3 years ago.
3. It was the last year that Dad, he hunted one more year, but he was not in great shape. So this was a funny story. We had hunted all day, and then we went down to visit the rancher, the lady rancher who lets us go in through her property up onto the forest. And it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, so like an hour before dark. And so we got in the pickup, and Dad said, "Hey, let's go drive up this creek, and Michelle's gonna shoot a buck." And everybody, and it may have been like the second to last day of season, so it was getting, to that point. I'll talk about how we talk about our deer too in a minute, but 'cause that's funny too. But anyway, so we drove up and had just crossed into the forest, and there was a fence that kind of did a corner like this, and the deer were all right here. And there was a little buck, and like I said, it was towards the end of our time, and I was ready and willing to shoot this little buck. And so it was I was getting ready, and so Dad and Dan and I were in one pickup, and then 3 of the other guys were in the pickup behind us. And so they saw me get my gun, and they're all like, "Oh, she sees it, she's gonna shoot it." And so so I was just getting ready to shoot this little 2-point, and Dan's like, no, shoot the other one. And this other deer lifted its head, and I was like, all right, boom, and just dropped him.
Yeah.
And Dad was so excited. You got it, yeah. Great shot. And everybody was,
Yeah.
great shot. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, all 3 of us killed really nice bucks that year, and I'll share here the mounts that I did with the 3 of us.
Oh, yeah. And so to give you kind of an idea too about how we talk, there we go, how we talk about our when we're like the week that we're hunting. So about 5 years ago was the first time we hunted, or I had hunted with these Wisconsin guys, and I, we would get there on Saturday, and so I'd say, I'm looking for a Sunday buck. They're all kind of looking, but nobody says anything. And then if I didn't find one on Sunday, I would be looking for a Monday buck. And so we'd see a buck, and Dad would go, how about that one? I was like, it's maybe a Wednesday, Thursday buck. And Dan is just like looking at me like I'm flipping crazy. Finally, he's like, what are you talking about? I said, okay, so we have 7 days to hunt. So the first day you're looking for a big buck, and you're waiting. The second day you take a Sunday, Monday buck, which could maybe be a little bit smaller, but you're still holding out for a big one. A Thursday, Friday buck, we leave on Saturday. So Thursday, Friday, you're just looking for horns, essentially. But anyway, it confused the heck out of them, because they're like, oh, what the hell is a Wednesday buck?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's the middle.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be a monster, just needs to be a good one.
Yep.
Running out of time.
Yep, absolutely.
Anyway,
yeah, that's funny.
They thought I was crazy.
I mean, they're not wrong.
Yeah, there's probably some truth to that. Some truth, but it works.
Yeah, no, for sure. And one, so that was the year that we presented Dad with the sign that I had made. And so there's a cool picture of our 2 bucks with the sign that I'll share here. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Your buck was super cool because the turn down main beam there, like that's a really unique characteristic.
Yeah, and they kind of come out and then kind of curl.
Yeah.
Can't remember in or out, but anyway, he's a cool looking buck.
Yeah, dandy buck, and then mine was a freak because he only had 1 antler, and but
big
would have been a monster if he'd had both. And You know,
Yes.
that was the first big buck that I ever killed was that
Mhm.
one. And then the next year I killed that even bigger one. And
Right.
so the last 2 years that I've had tags, I've killed my biggest and then beat that the next year. So I'm
Mhm.
hoping for more of that this year because, you know, I'm
Yep.
greedy. So,
Yeah, and the last two times besides that one that year that we all three shot those, I is when I had shot. Well, no, not the. We had the whitetail, the hunt before that. It was a couple years before that, and
mhm,
then I think in 2010s when I shot my first whitetail.
yeah,
Oh, there's us with the
yeah.
sign. Mhm.
Yep. Pretty
And
cool.
Dad would always go out in September and start scouting, and then he would get just as excited as us in anticipation of us getting there.
Yeah,
Um, like couldn't wait, and it was fun to have all his other friends and stuff, but he
yeah,
especially got excited waiting for us and then
yep,
having us be there.
yeah.
Completed
Yep.
the circle.
There was not much better than when the whole family's there and we're
Hmm.
all hunting and doing the thing and sitting around a campfire and
Telling
talking
stories
about the old
and
stories we've heard 50 times and
right.
doesn't even matter because that's part of the deal. So
Hmm.
that's, man, like hunting is so unique in that regard, you know, like you can just hear the same stories over and over and over again every year and it's still like, and you can put yourself in that same exact position, like you can remember it so perfectly, like
And feel the
every
excitement.
detail, and you
Yep.
can feel your heart speed up when you're
Yep.
just about to make that shot in your mind, and
Hmm.
you know, like when it all comes together, and it's such a unique experience, like it's such a
Very cool.
like a it's a very like church-like experience,
Hmm.
like, you know, I mean, you're communing with nature and
Right.
there's not much more sacred than that. So,
Hmm.
and you know,
Yeah, and it's about being aware of that too, and that you are taking a life, and
mhm.
there's a part of you that needs to honor that you're taking a life. You're not just going out and shooting a bunch of stuff to kill
No,
and shoot,
no,
and but that you're taking a life, and that life is going to feed you and your family. And for I mean, our entire both our childhoods, that was our meat. We
yep,
ate venison, and
yep,
if so there was no not filling a tag.
yeah.
um yeah,
I mean, we
I think
killed a
there's
lot of
one
animals.
year in all the years that I've hunted that I haven't filled the tag.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very rare.
And it was actually the last year that we hunted with Dad.
Yep,
um yeah, that was
yep,
hard.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, the first time, like, you know, the last time Dad and I tried to hunt together, and we started down this ridge, and we got a little ways, probably a quarter mile from the pickup, and he stops and he said, I don't think I can keep going. And I'm like,
Yep. Yeah. God.
but you always keep going. How
Right?
how can
Yeah.
you not keep
Not
going,
keep
Dad?
going.
Like that's the thing. That's
Right.
the thing about you.
And that was, I guarantee that's the first time you'd ever heard him say that, huh?
Yeah.
Because our last hunt too, we started up, we were over where we spread his ashes,
Yep.
and we started up this ridge, and Uncle Tom dropped us off, and we started, and then Tom went around the bottom to wait for us, and um, Dad actually made it up to the top. He had to stop lots and lots of times, and at one point he turned around and he looked at me. He goes, "This is a little different. It's you waiting for me this time. I've always been the one waiting for you." And then we got up on top, and um, he was out of breath and sat down and just was kind of looking around, and finally he turned to me and he said, I can't keep going. You go on around and hunt, and I'm just gonna walk back down and I'll be waiting by the road. And oh my God. So the tears, I walked away from him and the tears just started. And
Yeah.
but super cool because, I mean, not that part, of course,
Yeah.
but there was a fence that I had to cross. And so I set my rifle down and I climbed over this fence and looked down, and there were two perfect antlers that a little buck had dropped, but they were just laying, I mean, like he had jumped the fence and they fell off and they were just laying there perfectly.
Yep.
And so I have those. I brought those back, and you painted them for me, and
Yeah.
I have them hanging by his chair in my living room.
Yeah.
But that was my buck that year.
Yeah.
And that it didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
And then I came off the top down to where Uncle Tom was and was just bawling. And he's like, what's going on? I was like, Dad couldn't walk anymore. Yeah, so that was rough. He was super frustrated that last year too, just because he couldn't do the things he always did, which would be tracking the blood and helping walk and figure out where things were, and all of those things. But he also would not have missed it for the world. So
nope.
He needed that.
Yeah.
But
what an amazing guy. He was so proud of me when I killed that big buck.
Yeah,
it was the biggest buck that year that any of us got, and that was the first time that I'd ever done that. So like that was super, super awesome that that was a thing. So
because while we say it's not a competition, there is a little bit of competition going.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, yes. And my goal has always been to kill a bigger buck than Mike or Dad. So whether that ever happens, I don't know. But because they were the ones to beat always. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my goal is always to beat this buck because like that's the biggest buck that anybody in the family has ever killed. So like that's always my goal. That's and I know if I ever do, nobody will be happier for me than
Dad. Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah.
Pretty cool. So
yeah,
it's really fun talking about the impact and what a unique character he was, and just think back to all the different times, like hit one of his favorite tricks. So when we would go hunting, like Dad would always drive, and it just he would always drive, and everybody hunts all day, and then we have a drive home in the dark when everybody in the vehicle is asleep except Dad driving, and it's like none of us even like thought about it really, like it's just like I'm sure he's exhausted too, but
we all just
and he was totally okay with it. He never once ever said anything like and if he didn't needed somebody to wake up and help him drive, he would have done that, and it would have been fine. It's just like, but he was always a bit of a prankster too. So, so there were multiple times this happened, and I was in on one, and I'm sure you were as well. But you'd be driving down the road, and everybody's asleep, and all of a sudden he slams on the brakes and yells, big buck, and every damn person gets out of the vehicle, guns at the ready, like jacking shells in, looking around. Like it's dark, there is 0% chance that but it was like and he'd just be sitting in there laughing, like
chuckling away. Just
like,
the other funny thing that he would do too is and this was a few years back when you could kind of drive all over And he'd take off on something, and I'd say, "Is that a road?" And he's like, "Look in the mirror." So you can see our tire tracks. Like, that's a road, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah,
Guess
there
so.
are roads that exist today because
Because
we
Dad
invented them, and like, and now they're legitimate roads, but
roads. Yep.
that's
Yeah.
the rules were much different back then, and
Yes, they
you know,
were.
you used to be able to drive your vehicle to any deer that you killed. Like, that was, you
Right.
could
A
always do
given.
that.
Yeah,
So if
you
you can
never
get
had to.
there, now you can't
No.
go off the road at
Hence
all,
the deer carts.
which is fine. I mean, I totally support
Mhm.
shutting down as much extra road traffic as possible, because
Absolutely.
there's not much I hate more than getting on one of these big ridges and there's a set of four-wheeler tracks, that,
Yeah, that's super annoying.
oh, better not let me
Yep.
find you.
Right.
You better just go.
Yep.
Because I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what I would say. Probably wouldn't
Right.
be very nice.
Probably not.
But, you know, that's just one of those things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you got to work for it. And that's one nice thing too, because every year they're shutting down more and more roads in that country.
Right.
So, like, you can get off the road a little bit and walk and get into country that most people don't get into,
Don't.
because
Yeah.
most of the
A
people
lot
that
of
hunt down there road hunt. So,
right.
which, whatever, there are days when you've just put in 7-8 miles on a hike and you're just exhausted, but you still have, a few hours left of daylight. Like,
Oh,
we'll go road hunt. But
yep. And once in a while you'll
yeah,
jump a big one, but
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that giant one of Craig's, that was one of those situations. But
Mm-hmm. Yep.
still, like, that's not how we hunt. That's
No.
that sometimes happens, that it happens that way, but that's not
Right.
what we're doing. Like,
Yep.
we want to put in
Rarely.
the miles, and we want to cover some country, and, like, because there's nothing better than just getting on a cow trail and just walking and
Absolutely. Yeah.
seeing all the country, and
Mm-hmm.
it's
That's
amazing.
another funny, I mean, that's something that Dad always taught us was like, find a cow trail. It's your easiest path. So, um, that year, 4 years ago, maybe three, I don't remember. Anyway, when Dad and Norman, um, shot the elk,
Hmm.
and, they had hit one, and so we were tracking it. So they drove around up on top, and we kind of came in through the bottom, and then had to go up over top just to see if we could find it. And the guys from Wisconsin were with us, and there were two of them that were like going along the hillside, and I saw a cow trail, so I dropped off and hit the cow trail. And Dad's buddy, was kind of between me and the guys up on the hill, and and so I just started walking on this cow trail, and it's just you just plod along, but it's a well-beaten path, so you're not
Yeah.
stumbling over rocks and
Yeah.
holes and bushes and all of those things. And
Yep.
so finally I was watching these guys struggle on this hillside, and Dan kept kind of looking at me, and then finally he dropped down into the cow trail with me, and then the cow trail came up right over this ridge, and right there's where Dad and those guys were there. And he's like, "Did you know they were going to be right there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did. I knew exactly where I was
Yeah,
going."
obviously.
You find a cow trail, and it's
Yeah, it's always going to be
but
the
anyway,
easiest
and he
path.
was like, "Oh my God, yeah, now I see why you walk in the cow trails."
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
because if
Yeah.
you're side hilling and you're going around on these hills, and
And
if
it's
you
snow,
don't, oh my
and
gosh, like,
yeah, it's brutal.
yeah,
And the cows always take the easiest path. So if you find a
absolutely.
cow trail, it's going to be the easiest path
Well,
that
and
you're
it's
going
going
to.
to be a nice flat surface, and it's wide
Yep.
enough that you can walk. Like,
Yep.
that
Yep.
country is, yes, there's a lot of cows that graze that
The
range,
forest all
but
summer. Yep.
but they also make things a lot easier for
Yes.
overall, and especially with the game carts. Like, with that single wheel, like you can get
Mhm.
in a cow trail and
You're good to go.
go.
Yep.
Can
Yep.
walk out a full deer no problem, and
Mhm.
they've even taken out a cow elk in one,
Yep.
whole, which that's
Yep. Yep.
crazy. But
Yep. They're pretty
yeah,
slick.
yeah, Uncle Tom made a really, really nice cart. So
Mhm.
pretty
Yep.
ingenious dude.
Yep. Super.
Yeah, yeah, he came up with a great design. So
Mhm.
we'll definitely be putting those to use. Like, man, we screwed up last year because Rodney shot his buck the first morning that we hunted, and we were over a mile away from the road, and I got it in my head that we just needed to drag that buck out,
And you weren't
and then I was just
tangent.
toast. I was just toasted for days, like,
Mhm.
because I drug that deer most of the way by myself because, like,
Because like
nobody.
they're little people.
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Reggie's much smaller than me, and Rodney's not very big either. But
No.
apparently, he just turned 16 today.
I
So
saw that on Facebook. That's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
super weird. But
Yes.
you know, so
Yeah.
that'll be
Kids
cool.
grow
Get
up.
them out
Yeah.
again, and he got his
Mhm.
buck last year was a really nice buck. So
Yep.
kind of really solidified things for him, and
Mhm.
but
Did we
it's
talk about Merlin's buck last time?
we did not.
Okay. So my husband Merlin um, has really bad knees and a bad neck and all of this. So he tried hunting a couple of years and then he just quit because he couldn't physically manage it.
Yeah.
But his first and last buck, him and my dad were out and they tapped up over this ridge and there were two bucks fighting. Is that right? You might know the story
Yeah.
better than I do.
They
Two,
heard these weird sounds, like just sounds that my dad had heard, but Merlin had never heard before
mm-mm.
ever. And it was like, what in the hell is that even? And so they're just up on this big ridge and they're just watching to see, it was like chances are something's gonna show itself, and sure enough, this buck shows up and it's like got its head down and its tail between its legs, and it just had gotten the shit absolutely kicked out of it.
Kicked out of it.
And he so Merlin ends up shooting that buck, and
Mm-hmm.
here's
Mm-hmm.
got a few pictures of it here.
Bigger than anything I've ever killed, which is
Yeah.
really annoying.
Yeah. His one and only is.
Yes. But this is the buck that got its ass kicked. So you
Yeah.
can't even imagine what the other one looked like.
So they killed
They
it on this hill that was so steep they had to tie it to a tree right there
mm-hmm,
so it wouldn't slide down the
like
hill.
down the
And just a absolute dandy buck, like,
but
and it
he
ended up
had cuts and scars and
he
like
had
his
like
entire hide was scarred up and
yeah, they were gonna sell the cape to a taxidermist because that's what we do a lot of times, and they can always use good capes. But Merlin took it to the taxidermist, and there were so many. The taxidermist just like, this is absolute garbage. Like, this is worth. Like, I should charge you for my time, basically, just to look at
right.
it because this is such garbage. There was a there was a like a 3/4 to inch deep cut from its neck all the way down
Oh,
to its
that's
butt,
right. I forgot about that.
like all the way down. That buck was just annihilated.
Mm-hmm.
So then so this is the mount that Merlin ended up getting with it, and it ended up being the inspiration for, like, this was a big part of the reason that I started my skull mounting business, was this mount
Mm-hmm.
and how cool it looks. And like that plaque design, like that's the plaque design I use for all my plaques. And just it looks so awesome. But that's like he was about a 165 buck,
Mm-hmm.
about 26 inches wide, just a dandy buck. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a beautiful deer. So,
Yep.
but that's the one that got its butt kicked.
Right. I can't even
So,
imagine what the other one looked like.
yeah.
They didn't see it. They
No, they
didn't
never saw that other
grab it.
buck,
Yeah.
and definitely could have shot it if they had seen it, but
Right.
just didn't happen. So
Yeah.
pretty crazy. Anyway, yeah. What a
Yeah.
guy.
So I guess my goal really should be to get a bigger buck than my husband shot.
I mean, since that was his one and only, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
No, it's cool.
It
You
looks
guys,
pretty nice hanging on the wall.
it does. It does. You guys have some really nice mounts. So.
Mhm. Thanks, Matt. You've done a
Hey,
really
you're
nice job with
welcome.
my
Glad to
plastic
help.
balls.
You
Yeah.
know, it's just
Yes, if you've got something, this guy can do it, I tell you.
that's true. Yeah. So here's I couldn't find it when we were talking that time, but here's the mount on your bigger whitetail, the big
Mm.
one.
Yeah, the first whitetail wasn't big enough to mount, but
No.
yeah, there's my whitetail.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Yep, that was cool. And it was just me and Dad, and
Yeah.
there's lots of times it was just me and Dad, but
Yep.
that was one. And that's the one I just grabbed the rifle and started shooting and then realized it was Dad's rifle and not mine. Whatever. Grab
Yep.
the first one.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I got him in one shot too.
Yeah.
On the run though.
Yep. Yeah, I think you got that one with the 257 Weatherby.
Yep.
Here's your first whitetail.
Yeah, this guy was the last day of hunting.
Which is a good buck. I mean, for a
Yeah,
last day buck, that's exactly what you want to shoot. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
yep.
He was another one that was standing broadside and I missed him the first time and then he started running and then I dropped him.
Yep. Yeah.
That was the first whitetail I'd ever killed and then the second one.
Yep.
So.
Oh, that's funny. So we'll pull up this picture and then you can tell the story.
That means I have to remember the story.
That was the broken horn buck.
Oh. So this was a buck. I don't know when. Do you remember when?
Probably 20 years ago.
Yeah. Long time ago anyway.
Yeah.
I shot this buck and when I shot it, it had two horns. Two very nicely matched horns.
Yep.
And,
Good 4-point, good buck.
And he went crashing after I hit him and hit a rock and just broke the second horn off right there. Yep.
Busted it into 3 big pieces and
just like, really? I mean, Mike's the one that always, shoots the weird ones or the one-horned bucks or whatever.
Or shoots an antler off.
Or shoots an antler off.
Yeah.
And then I shoot one and it breaks off when he falls.
Did everything exactly right. Shot it, knocked it down, put him down right away, and just busted its antler.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
wouldn't be a story if
I mean that's it.
Happened any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, there's so many, as we've said, like nobody had cameras, so
right.
There are so many pictures that we don't have.
That we don't, right? Yeah.
But
Because we actually had film, and then you take pictures, and then you'd get them developed, and they all sucked, and
yeah,
yeah.
look at that
Yeah.
thumb right in the way, you know.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
always. Yeah. But I sent you those pictures
Yeah, I'm
of
pulling up a couple of
few
them.
of Dad's bucks when he was younger.
There's you and him.
Oh, that's probably my first buck. Because
Nice,
I was probably 13 or 14 in that picture.
nice. Yeah, that was a couple years ago.
And Dad was as happy as a clam.
Yep,
Yeah, a couple
for
years
sure.
ago. Yeah, it was such a cute little thing.
Yeah,
Oh, and that snowsuit. But that's what we had. We
yeah,
didn't have camo.
absolutely.
We had
No,
whatever we had that was
no.
warm, and
Yep.
yeah.
You do the best you can with what you
What
got,
you got.
and
Yeah.
what you know, and it's like you do the best you can until you can do better, and then do better.
Right.
Now we can do better, and now we have really good clothing and gear and rifles and scopes and binoculars
Yeah.
and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you still got to get out there and do it. So just makes it a little bit easier, and
Yeah.
you don't have to wonder like, wonder where my gun's hitting today.
Right.
We'll find out here in a minute.
Yep. Hold it high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got one of your
Hold a foot over his back. Okay.
yeah. Here's one of your I don't know, a doe that you killed.
Oh, that was probably my very first one.
Mm-hmm. We talked about that on the last one.
Yeah. But by then I was smiling, so
Yep.
it was all right.
Yeah.
I don't think, well, I did shoot a couple does after that, but I don't like to shoot does.
Nope. Not much for shooting does.
No.
Yeah, here's this was a really cool buck that Dad killed. And I didn't have this picture that you have, but I've got like some from our front yard when they came home. But this was kind of a
Yeah, I
weird,
found,
like 2x4 buck.
yeah, that's a giant flipping
Yeah.
2-point side. Holy
Yeah.
crap. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good one. And it's funny, so like you look at that background there, and there's another big buck that it looks like was taken in basically the same exact spot, which is pretty crazy.
Oh, wow. Very similar, huh? Well, we have our honey holes.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And like I went back and forth, and I compared the pictures, and they very well could be the exact same spot.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I actually found those pictures in some of Mike's stuff.
Oh, nice.
So I brought him in so we could scan
Yeah,
them.
for sure.
And then I took pictures, and I'll get you better copies.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. And then this was a big buck. Of course.
He had a few of them.
Yeah, he did.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a dandy. That's a real nice buck.
Yes, it is.
Probably 25, 26 wide.
Yep. And that's the quality of our pictures from
for sure. And that's great.
Days,
like,
and that's, yeah.
I love this one on the Toyota. no room inside, so you gotta put them
Yep.
on the hood and
Yep.
tie them
Strap it
down.
down and yeah.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
2 good bucks, and
Yeah. Yep.
can barely see over the hood, but gotta get them home.
Yep. Do what you do.
Yep, that Toyota was
A beast.
good as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Not very comfortable, but
No. Especially if you were in the back.
as long as you were driving, it was okay. But
Right. Otherwise, yeah, no. And cold
yeah.
was not windproof.
Oh, and the heater was non-existent, so
Right, yeah.
that was never a thing. Here's a nice picture of the 3 of us at camp right when me and Jerome were leaving. That first year I brought Jerome when it was cold as all hell.
Oh God, it was so cold that, yep. Yep.
Yeah, it was some years, man. It gets damn cold.
Oh God, yeah. So one year, Mike and his buddies had a big wall tent set up. So Dad and I decided we'd go spend the night with them and go hunting, and it was like super cold. And I had never camped out in the cold winter before, so we had this bright idea that we'd have an air mattress to sleep on because you don't want to sleep on the ground. I've never been so cold in my entire life, and it got down to like 10 below that night. Oh my God, I thought I was gonna die. So I think the next night Dad and I stayed at Norman's, but don't ever do that. Air mattresses in the winter are not your friend.
No. Air is cold.
Air is very cold.
And will seep into your soul.
Yes. And I get cold easy anyway, so
Yeah.
oh my God. Worst idea ever. But
I mean,
you do what you gotta do.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, for sure.
And then Dad bought the truck with heated seats. Oh, that was heaven.
Yep, for sure.
Get out, you'd go out and make a hunt and be tired and cold, and then you'd get in the pickup and you'd turn it on and you hit that heated seat button.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, when we got our first like relatively newish vehicle for hunting, and we always had old Fords primarily, and they were good vehicles, but damn, they were rough and cold and broke down a lot.
Of them you could like see through the floorboards and
and then would just quit working for a while
randomly. Yep.
Yeah. So when when Dad got his, he had a 2000 Chevy Silverado half ton, and I bet that truck only had like, I don't know, 130,000 miles on it or something when he bought it.
Yeah.
And then it like is currently like 260,000 miles, and most of that.
And that truck can get anywhere, like where other trucks and Jeeps and
not lifted. I mean, really low to the ground, even compared to most. And it just was a tough vehicle.
He loved it.
Yep. He came out to Wisconsin several times in it, and he when he was down in New Mexico, he was doing the campground hosting down there, and I went and visited him, and he was right next to the White Sands Missile Range, and there's a campground right there, and in the Oregon mountains, and man, that was so cool to go see. And we grew up reading LAmour books, and my dad loved all the LAmour books, and So I've been reading Louis L'Amour for my whole life, and I've read every single one of them at least 15 times, and I own all of them. They're on a shelf right up there. I've got the whole
Do you have
collection.
all of them?
I do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I need to read them again.
There's well over 100,
Mm-hmm.
and then his son is releasing a bunch of like manuscripts, and
Mm,
oh my gosh, it's so
cool.
cool. Like
Yeah.
the first parts of stories that he never got back to, and
Oh, wow.
super, super cool. But a lot of what Louis L'Amour wrote about was the Southwest and New Mexico and Arizona
Arizona
and
and
a lot of that country, you know, because he spent a lot of time there in his youth when he was like figuring shit out, you know. So I've been reading about these places for my whole life. And
mhm,
so when Dad was down in New Mexico, I got to go spend like 4 days with him down there. And we went to Lincoln County, New Mexico, where Billy the Kid did the Lincoln County War was right there, and
mm,
Ruidoso, and I mean that country is crazy, crazy
mhm,
cool. And then we went over to the Mogollon Mountains, and like right by where New Mexico meets Arizona, and we went all the way to Arizona line, so I could cross into Arizona and check that state off my list. And um, but those Mogollon Mountains are pretty wild, and like now
mhm.
it's like some really really superb elk hunting there. But it was really cool just
Yeah,
to kind of,
awesome.
and then like the the coolest part, so White Sands is is so amazing. It's so
Mhm,
big, and like the sand is like snow, and they have to plow it just like snow, and
mhm,
it drifts over the road, and takes over fences, and like the fences that are right next to the highway, like a lot of them are like the sand is right up on the fence both sides. You can see the tops of the fence posts kind of sticking
mhm.
out there. And then you look at a map on Google Earth, and you see this big white round spot, because it was like a dry lake bed basically, and
Mm.
it's super awesome. And then right north of it is this gigantic black like snake thing that was like a lava flow that happened about 1100 years ago,
Hmm.
that is black lava. So if you look on Google Earth, there's this huge, like 200-mile long black, and it goes right to the edge of this big, 50-mile by 50-mile white sand. It's
Wow.
so crazy.
I'll
So,
have to look at it.
and then it like when you get to it in person and you see it, it's so crazy, because you can get up right next to the lava, and you can tell it's dark, but you don't know it's black until you see it from a distance. So we
Mhm.
were up on top of the mountains looking down over it, and you can see just like where the lava had flowed. And you get down there, and there's so much vegetation now that has grown up in that lava that you just like you can't the perspective isn't there when you're right
Uh,
on it. But
from
really
a distance.
really cool. So
Super cool.
yep.
Mhm.
Yep. And then we saw a big herd of like 30 oryx on the
Mhm.
missile range, and that was super awesome. So
Yeah, very cool.
but he had that truck there, and
Mhm.
we drove all over. We spent the whole time I was there driving pretty much, and
Oh, yeah.
seeing country and checking out
Mhm.
places, and it
Well,
was
and
just
yeah, and he always had all these places to show you, and he would be
yeah,
so excited. And even the campgrounds in Montana, we would go and hang out with him for a week or whatever, and
yep,
it's just driving, looking for
yep,
animals, and
yep,
showing you all his favorite places,
yep,
and
yep.
very much
He
like hunting.
he loved wherever he was, and
Mhm.
he was always close to wild,
Mhm.
and he loved sharing that wild with everybody more than
Mhm.
most things. And
Mhm. And it wasn't just about the elk and the deer. It was about the butterflies and the flowers and the
yep,
it was from the very simple
Yep.
to the total majestic.
Yep.
Um,
He loved
he loved it all.
wildflowers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
wildflowers were one of his favorite things.
Yep.
Like he ended up turning his entire yard into a big wildflower
He
patch.
did. Yep. He plowed it all up and dug up the grass and threw wildflower seeds out and had
Yeah.
the whole yard was flowers.
Yep.
Yes.
Pretty awesome. I'm gonna pull up
Yeah.
your tattoo here.
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
So this is the tattoo I got to honor Dad, done by Anchored Art Tattoo here in Spokane. And so this is the big whitetail. No, big 5-point mule deer that Dad shot. So those I took a photograph in of the horns, the antlers, and then a photograph of the mountains right there where we hunt, and then the butterfly. And so this guy took the pictures of the mountains and took the pictures of the antlers and the butterfly, and he went off and he drew this out real quick, and he came back, he said, "How's this look?" I was like, that's perfect.
Yep.
Super painful
Yep.
on the foot, but I love it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so I recently my daughter and I got to go up to Alaska, and that was one of the places. Yeah, there's the deer.
One of
one
the
of the places that Dad always wanted to go, and
never made it.
never made it. But so this friend of ours that we went up to see, he said, so all of my family members have put their feet in this river. And so I said to my daughter, I said, okay, we gotta do this. We're family now. Because that's what we do. If we like you, you just become part of our family.
Yep.
And so we took our shoes off, and then I looked down at my feet and there was Dad on my foot, and it's like, all right, Dad, you're here.
You made it.
It's amazing.
Yep.
You made
Yep.
it. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
He had quite a life.
And it was funny because the tattoo artist was like, don't you want it going the other way so when people look at it, it's the right? And I said, no, this tattoo is for me. I want it so I see it the way it is. So
Yep, for sure.
Yep.
It's awesome. Yeah.
But I've gotten tons of compliments, and like that's one of the coolest tattoos I've ever seen. And
yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, I'm probably the next t-shirt stencil that I have done is probably gonna be the 5 points.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yep. They're pretty cool. Pretty cool seeing the big antlers in print, and
yeah,
been pretty popular. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we're gonna end it there, and thank you so much for joining me, and
always,
I can't wait to go hunting with you here in a couple
20
weeks.
days.
Yay!
20 days.
But who's counting?
We're not.
Me.
No, I am a little bit now, finally, too. Yeah. You.
Me.
Yep. All right. Love you.
Love you too.